7:01. I'll call the planning commission meeting to order. We have roll call, please.
Grant.
Here.
Denkert. Davio.
Here.
Dretzky.
Here.
Matthias.
Here.
Boskeljohn.
Here.
Split.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as presented. I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from September 17th meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the September 17th meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes from September 17th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They're approved. First action item then is a CSM for Bruce Knapwurst at 307 and 309 Hamburg Street. Would you like to go over the project or what we're combining? Reasons?
Would you like me to do that?
Sure, if you'd like.
Okay, sure. Just grab the front sheet.
Is this the property we just put
Yes.
some city,
Yes, it was an ordeal, trust me.
the vacated?
Yes.
The hardest part of this job was there was two properties, and then we found that there was a gap between the two lands, and I went through two title companies to try to figure that out. I mean, I had this project done back in May of this year, and I needed some help regarding some of the title work on this property. And I tried doing my due diligence, and I never really got a very good answer for it. And they just, whether they didn't want to do it or they couldn't find anything, so that's when I had talked to Adam, and then, of course, with Lud regarding this, and then they came up with the document that was obviously signed by the board here and approved, and then once I got that information, I put that together. But in lieu of that, what Bruce wanted to do is just to combine these two lots together, into one, to make it a one-lot certified survey map to kind of clean up what was done. Again, difficulty because the block corner was gone and there was not a lot to work with out there to do this job, but that's either here nor there. That's not a concern of yours. But in the future, you know, as far as some of these jobs that go, I do appreciate the city, you know, going to bat for myself and my client regarding that 12-foot strip that no one seemed to want to deal with. And of course, the city took care of it, and again, we appreciate that. So I don't know if there's any questions on the map at all. Answer them.
Any questions? Any motions?
I'll move to approve the certified survey map for 307 and 309 Hamburg Street.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the CSM for 307, 309 Hamburg Street, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is approved. Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
Well, thank you for your patience. And of course, my client, Mr. Knapwurst, it was very, very cumbersome. It shouldn't have been, but it was. You learn something all the time. I thank you. I thank everybody here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, a discussion review of the zoning code project. We have Matt here with Muir Becker. If you want to start off, let us know what your progress is. Cool.
So appreciate the introduction. Again, Matt Miller from Muir Becker. I've been collaborating with Adam for a couple months now on the zoning code, its update. Tonight kind of represents the end of phase one of two phases. Phase one is kind of that introduction, discovery, putting eyes on it, kind of parsing out, okay, what is good, bad, and different changes, if needed, either to comply with updates in statute or kind of the times to pass certain code sections by. And beyond that, also just saying, hey, well, what is it? What makes a more usable document, not just for Plan Commission to follow and base procedure and decisions on, but also how council interprets certain things in the code as well. So again, kind of tonight, kind of wrapping up that phase one of the discovery, having put eyes on it. Okay, what do we see? And conversely, what do we not see? Maybe what's missing that we need to have in there. That'll allow me, my broader team, to go into kind of that phase two of redlining that language, having kind of some new draft language proposed, of modifying the existing structure to better work for the city moving forward. With that, I know I've chatted with Adam virtually twice on this. We had a touch base September 9th, had a touch base around a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, when he brought up the idea of, hey, it'd be a good idea, to have you visit mid-November, come to the Planning Commission, maybe hash some of this stuff out, or obviously hear maybe what you as a commission have experienced with certain things of, hey, maybe there's items or occurrences that you see frequently. Maybe there's something that's only happened one time, but you think procedure, outcome, could it have been easier on the applicant and city alike? So that's kind of, what I wanted to do a dive into tonight. And with that, Adam, I could
Yeah, I can just kind of fill in too a little bit here. So,
Yep.
so thanks. We've been working on this project it started, the council authorized this maybe 6 months ago or so, and then I kind of put it on the back burner because we were busy. So we're back to it. So before we got too far into it with changes, we wanted to provide an opportunity for the Plan Commission that was a part of the scope to present things, because this will have to go through the Plan Commission, do public hearings, all that. But we wanted more, more than just staff opinion into it or consultant opinion while we're developing it, to make sure that we're heading in the right direction. And just from a very, high level perspective, this is the zoning map. There's a lot of colors, a lot of different districts, right? And we're not necessarily saying we're going to change all of this, but every area has their, code has their sections and their uses and their regulations, and we're looking at the appropriateness of how they are written. And I shared with the commission last time we met a couple months ago that we were working through this, and shared with you the memo and just the general layout of the code. And aside from minimal changes, which were actually somewhat, it's not major, but minimal in a sense that it didn't look at everything. It just looked at the housing code. We did do an update about 3 years ago, and that was more for R1, R2, R3, and as well as planned unit development. But we did not touch, the central business district. We didn't touch industrial, and we didn't touch kind of just these other districts, which not every district necessarily needs to be changed. But there are certainly some concerns or some areas that we need to address because they're out of date, or times have changed, right? Like uses have changed, right? Like it's very, there's maybe some language in here, as well as this is a 170-page document.
PDF, it was whatever that was, 184 word, it was 124, and I'm like,
And
what resident even, control F are you gonna go? Or to a point, you get that, I know your reference of, I like printing it out, I like it in front of me. If it's to a point where it's saying, jump to this section as a reference or whatever. Computer, maybe it's easier because it's hyperlinking you and it's taking you there. But if not, then you're thumbing through that stack or that hard copy, and you're paying Adam a visit here at City Hall.
Yeah, it can be overbearing, and we're we're not necessarily, we've also done the floodway districts that's in there, and we really shouldn't be touching those because the DNR has basically made us over the past couple of years have the changes in there reflect what they want and regulation at that level. So aside from the floodway district, it's pretty much we can change whatever. We Luke and I he messaged me about comprehensive planning. So we did some comprehensive planning about 5 years ago, and a reference in there was land use and updating the code because it's outdated. So there is some long range impacts too, but generally speaking, this was a recommended project, and we sort of need to have a callback to that longer range plan as well. There are other concerns that I have just legally how we're operating some of these things, whether it's conditional use permits or how state laws have changed in the period of time that we haven't necessarily kept up with, and we may be opening ourselves up for problems. And then I did invite Craig because I think one of the just input from for the B1 Central Business District is really important. We have to get that right and make sure that we have everything in that district, particularly in a downtown area, historic downtown. We gotta make sure that's right. So there's a lot here, and I just wanted to get feedback and have Matt come and have a conversation and just have Matt, you can lead it. I don't really want to because this is office kind of way, and we can kind of take it where it goes and follow up from here tonight. So
I guess maybe my jumping off point, Adam, unless there's some immediate thing right away that someone questioning, comment, concerned about, is I'd maybe put say 5 minutes on the clock. I know kind of my assessment report, a couple pages was printed off, included in the packet. I would touch upon maybe kind of have that high level overview of my perspective of, here's the entirety of the code. Here's what I saw, here's what I have on the 5-6 pages there, and just hit quickly in maybe a 5-minute span.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we expand from that 5 minutes onto certain points, we go off in a different area entirely, but maybe that's kind of where my head is at in terms of how we tackle this. So.
sounds good.
Cool. So I guess kind of from the top, that second numbered page in there, definitions, just a smattering of things in my discussion, and as a side note, Adam and I touched base on this about a week and a half, 2 ago in a virtual call, so we kind of cruised through this together. I bounced this off of him already. In a nutshell, some of the definitions, kind of a paradox. Do we want to expand some definitions, and or conversely, do we want to shrink them? Maybe there are some definitions that have a reference to that first one, community living arrangement. There's a proximity standard. Looked at that, stood out to me, and for the life of me, in looking at that, I said, I wonder if that was a standard that felt quote right at the time to city leadership, or what the context was. I didn't see maybe something referenced in statute of where that number came from. So that's an example of, do you keep that number in there, or are we at a point of wherever it came from, if we can't remember, have the institutional knowledge of how it came to be in there? If it doesn't have to be in there, can it be changed? Does it hamper the city from doing something potentially useful and productive in the future?
And I'll just say some of this is the definitions. If you look like home occupation, this is one that we really hit on.
Yeah.
The definition of home occupation in the ordinance is this, and it specifies certain things, like no internal or external alterations, no equipment or process shall be used to create noises, vibration, glare. These are regulations in a definition. And if someone were to just go to the code and say, a home occupation is allowed in a R1 district, and they don't look at the definition of a home occupation, they're just going to assume they can do certain things, but it's just it's not placed in the right area in our minds. Just we're regulating within definitions versus within the code section where it's more appropriate. And again, if you don't, when we look at the code, I'm not sitting here, generally, when you go to R1, you're going to it and you're saying uses, and it says, well, it says home occupation somewhere, but maybe it doesn't. I can't remember where it was.
Yeah, I don't even know if it said it in R1.
Okay,
Might be
uses-
evident to your point of what.
Uses customarily incidental and above home occupations are permitted by right, provided as such situated within the dwelling. Okay, but if so you read that, you're like, great, but then you go up to definitions and it's like, no, you gotta follow some rules. Like,
It's subsection I there, the second sentence, and it's,
we don't wanna make this all about home occupations, but this is an example of the cleanup that we're trying to get done.
kind of in that same breath, there's home occupation, you just see one or two entries down on that same page, residential business activity. And I brought it up with Adam, kind of like the late George Carlin. Well, what the hell does that mean? What is actually the difference between the two if there's so much overlap? How does that, again, how do we best serve the city moving forward without hampering the good? So definitions, hey, there's some regulation in it. Do we want to be more specific? Do we want to be broader on certain things, just in terms of flow and general understanding? Some generalizations. There's, I think, part of literally the bulk of the code is that there's that repetition of certain districts, certain sections say, oh, it's either, again, it's this, for lack of a better term, there's kind of a weird double-sided coin going on of either it very quickly says, oh, for your parking standards, do the same parking standards as the R1 district. Okay. In other places, it'll take the same language, it'll replicate it in its entirety there, and I'm thinking, okay, just from the simplest perspective possible, we probably can save a couple pages there, at least in terms of rattling off the same thing again. So and maybe that goes to a comment suggestion that I bounced off of Adam, and I'll bring it up here in a minute or two, see what you all think of it. So there are some language clauses just kind of for us to be aware of. I think the one that Adam had rattled off there, and that that section I that he just rattled off, there are one or two of uses customarily incidental to the above uses. It appears several times. I think it's always okay for a code to give you that little bit of discretion and control of, it's not so harsh and defined that you don't have a little bit of leeway. But in the same breath, it's, I don't know, if I was an attorney, that'd be a scary clause to me, because it's like, okay, how good is someone at arguing, oh, this is close enough to something that you've already
Can be pretty good.
Yeah.
So, another kind of discussion point, signage. Adam and I, our discussion on that, maybe how we tailor, how we touch that section, potentially change it. Really kind of focusing in on the types of signage, where those specific types of signage are or aren't allowed, and kind of the how, why, other aspects. Is there lighting on the sign or not? For example, I think you got a couple different variables and things going on there with signs, and more recent legal cases have decided, you can't regulate signage content, for example. You can control its size and its location, and plenty of communities say, you can't have a business sign that looks like a traffic control sign, because that would be a safety issue, obviously, just as an example. So, kind of cruising along.
So just to take, so the signage ordinance too, we did receive some technical assistance through Ripon Main Street from WEDC to help audit our sign ordinance. So they kind of created a draft, and we've kind of weaved it into this process. But their recommendation was we need to address it, and there are some pretty wrong things going on there because it hasn't been addressed since litigation and other issues over time. So that's a component of this. We've received some other best practices from Wisconsin Main Street and WEDC. So just a side note there.
In terms of the districts, you know, Adam and I, we really beat this horse pretty badly in our discussion 2 weeks ago, primarily from the perspective of, you know, our code text has, as you see, there's the listing. Then I noticed something felt off in reviewing it. I said, it feels like something was missing. Well, something that was missing. There are 2 zoning districts that are not referenced in that initial kind of cheat sheet, hey, here are the districts we have. Though aspects of those districts that aren't listed right there are reported later on. Conversely, the interactive zoning city zoning map, which I think is probably where most folks probably would have as their jumping off point of, you know, seeing that zoning related stuff for the first time if they were poking around trying to find something. There are a couple designations on there that don't cleanly align with how it is in code. It raises more question. I mean, I assume, for example, my little screenshot there, the DDD, I assume that is your kind of your PUD, your planned unit development.
Well, that's downtown development district.
Downtown development
Downtown.
district. So,
Yeah, that, yeah.
but
Yeah, it's
but you know, I looked at it and I'm like, okay, I got some missing on the list in the text itself, and then I have, you know, some color convention on the interactive map doesn't follow how it's usually portrayed. I think it could just, you know, I think unfortunately it would lead to confusion for folks. Across the residents, across the districts, maybe it's the time to pitch or get feedback on this. As I just had a couple, maybe the biggest one, two, 3 things that I saw across some of those districts on the subsequent 1 or 2 pages. Something I bounced off of Adam, kind of building on that earlier. Hey, you use the same standards as the R1 district, that reference back. I bounced off Adam, I said, where do we kind of stand on kind of 2 critical questions? Where do we stand, one, on the potential of district consolidation, having fewer zoning districts in the code? And 2, when we have our language, when we have our standards for the code, where is our mind at in terms of, do we want that structure in the code to kind of remain? Here's where I'm driving at with that. Do we want it to still have kind of the waterfalling text, or is there that opportunity to have a table for the bulk standards? Lot size, setbacks, coverage.
You just got one of mine.
In 1 page.
a table form.
Yeah.
Or, as another example, permitted and conditional uses, having those kind of the list. Do we want to have a list in the text where if there's some overlap across the districts, instead of having that replication, lengthening the length of the code, do we have that in a 3 to 4 page attachment, a table saying, here, all our permitted conditional uses, here are the zoning districts we have in this community. If it's a P, it's permitted. If it's a C, you're coming for conditional use. And if it's not listed, we don't allow it in that area.
You're referencing the Excel spreadsheet that we got sent in the email?
That is just as an example.
Okay.
That was my taking your existing language. I like to think I'm more of a visual person, so I wanted to see, okay, where do we have commonality in the districts? Where's the same thing kind of popping up? So that was kind of my crude attempt at kind of color coding, okay, what's similar, what's different. For me, it also kind of put into relief, there's a lot of text conveying some of those size and measurements and some of the things that you have to be meeting for certain criteria. So kind of with those two questions, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Adam, what were your thoughts on like using some sort of table and stuff through that? Because I've seen it in Columbia County as an example where I've done some work, and I mean that table is like pretty extensive, but they also have a zoning code of like 200 some pages. They got overlay districts on overlay districts. It's kind of ridiculous. So I also don't want us to get into a habit where we have a table and it's like, oh, now we can just add another line to the table because it's so much easier. I don't want that either. So I'm just open through your discussions what you've thought about it.
I think sometimes if you structure it right, the table can be a nice flow and can be easy and cleaner. Because I mean, I think it's in the current status, it's like you got to get through. You're just scrolling, and searchability and just access and use. I like the idea of making it just look different than just language, I guess, too, because it gets kind of intimidating. But I think some of it is, as we talked about, consolidation, right? I think the biggest one we mentioned, maybe I don't know if I'm skipping ahead, but the idea that we have an industrial district, an industrial park district, and a light industrial district. Yet all of our industrial districts are just I-1. And I have no idea what the history is. Maybe somebody here does, John, Ted, somebody that's been here longer, understands why there was an industrial park district and a light industrial district. Because each of them have little differences, but we don't use them then. And we had talked about moving maybe to an industrial and just a light industrial, eliminating kind of an industrial park district, because an industrial park is an industrial district. Why do you need an industrial park district? But yeah.
Maybe the perspective at that point in time for that I-2 industrial park district was courting a specific business entity. I don't know that background context, but it very well could have been, we need something, quote, sexier than just this is the I-1 industrial district. And we have landscaping and vegetative standards around just as an example of what may have come of that. But, I think
A lot of bigger towns will separate those out into like areas where you have an industrial park, which is just office buildings, and it's beautiful, and people go there to walk their dogs. And then you have some that are warehouse distribution centers with massive trucks coming in and out. Mm-hmm. And then you have others where there's actual manufacturing happening with smoke and discharge and all kinds of junk. And they separate them into different districts for that reason, so that you don't get an office building next to a factory.
Mm-hmm. Which makes sense, but I don't know.
Not that Ripon's big enough.
Yeah.
But I think that weighs in too from a perspective. I think Dave just gave us a good juxtaposition of if it's something that's more of an office use, unless perhaps they have not to get in the weeds, if they are a manufacturer and they have light manufacturing on site attached, would we not, if someone's blue or white collar going, in an office environment, would we not be thinking that more of kind of a commercial or business use, zoning wise versus industrial? I guess my simpleton's perspective on industrial is, you have raw material coming in, and production of some sort, stuff being touched, and then a certain more refined product going out. I guess that's just Matt Miller's personal, maybe 2 cents definition on that. But, something to kind of think about in terms of, okay, what would our line be? Maybe builds on another comment and discussion Adam and I had, but that I-3 district is kind of, quote, the light industrial district. Well, then you look at the conditional uses in that district, and light manufacturing is a conditional use. In the light industrial district, I'm like, something doesn't smell right with that. Like, I'm sure someone would ask the question of the city eventually of, oh, I fit best in this designation, but I have to do a conditional use permit. So that's something we brought up. I guess kind of looping back to the, do we do consider having some tables? Kind of my discussion with Adam on that was, we didn't want to then go too far in the opposite direction, or, I really don't want those figures to be smattered throughout the code, because then you can get lost in the weeds too.
Yeah, I think if anything, you gotta have almost like one comprehensive table just
So-
listed and not throw it filtered throughout the code. I mean, I've seen it both on setbacks, they have different ones, and then ones for even just parking. Like I've seen that as one, and then also, conditional use column or table, and then a permitted use table. So they like have broken them up all in those. Sometimes they overlap conditional permitted use too, as well.
So I have with me, I had briefly screen shared this with Adam, but I'll spin it. This is, I collaborate a lot with Village of Argyle, Blanchardville, a couple communities down Lafayette, Iowa County area. Touching Argyle's code, the last month or two, have been helping them update theirs. We have their public hearing a couple weeks out, but this is just as an example of where I'm taking Argyle's code, instead of having that, some of those kind of the variables there listed repeatedly in each of those district sections. I'm saying, here's this one table, it's one PDF page. That's where kind of that dimensional stuff will live now, for lack of a better term. And in a similar way, I put the permitted and conditional uses together in one separate table. This one is 4 to 5 pages, so I get, there's, chatting with them, we had our struggles too of, where's that balance, but I said, for 6 pages of 2 tables, we're actually getting rid of 10 to 16 written pages in the code. I feel like that's a good trade-off in terms of clarity. That's just the example in their context.
When you do a chart like that, do you list either the structure or facility that's going up? So for example, it's like, let's say it's like a storage shed in an industrial place, and then you go to the table and it'll say, permitted. Or is it more generalized? Because then if you start listing all those, then we get back to now we have to find all those again, and we have a definition section, that's a lot of pages too. And I don't think it won't hopefully condense it, because I hope it does. But again, then once we start listing use, it's like, oh, now we gotta list almost every use possible that might exist. That's the benefit of generalizing. You're like, the city or the board's gonna decide, yeah, that works or that doesn't work. But then if you have all these definitions and you're like, okay, now we gotta follow this to a T, and we wanna make sure that that's followed through ultimately, otherwise we're gonna have people not doing, the right uses too.
I think there are layers to that, both from the perspective of, okay, what uses are there? How we conceptualize them as permitted or as a conditional use, and how verbose are we being when describing them? I think that, I guess that's kind of what I mean by the layers there of what language we have on certain things. Can we shorten that language? And then where do we see that language is applicable across different districts to say, okay, now we can focus in. Just one example, Village of Argyle, that permitted conditional uses table, foster family care. Actually, they have it in several of their districts, but now I have it one line. It's permitted in their residential districts, their downtown district, and one of their highway commercial as well, which is a little tidbit there. So I think part of that process for our context here would be, it would be a process. It would be looking at, and for my team saying, okay, what are we driving at here in terms of XYZ thing? What is the intent? can we shorten it while still protecting the city and being true to what we want as our intent, and then going from there. So. Other thoughts on doing table, not doing table, and/or the potential consolidation of districts, if we feel it's wanted or needed?
I certainly prefer the table layout. So you can see, say, if someone comes to town, they say, I have a tannery business I want to bring in, go through the code. Just alphabetically listed all the businesses, see tannery, and nope, can't do that in the city. Or whatever the result may be, as opposed to digging through every chapter, trying to see, is it permissible here or there? If we were to add or remove something from that table, is that public hearings, or is that simple to do with?
I think it would be an amendment to the zoning code.
So it would
have
be
to-
a
yeah,
public hearing.
yeah. It would be just the process to amend the zoning code, yeah.
Is there a way to, like, there's an industry we haven't thought of, and it would make completely sense to do it in this district, but not that district. Is there wording that we could put in for just bringing that to the planning commission for something that's not listed anywhere in the code?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, it's that discretionary language we talked about earlier, and how do we weave that in, and really, you know, use what we have in the existing code as the starting point for, you know, allowable uses, conditional uses, and then, you know, either getting rid of things that may not be around anymore.
Hat stores.
Hat stores, right? You know,
What
what's the difference?
Yeah, hat stores.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like, our code has a lot of things that could be lumped into like a hat store, stuff like
It's a
that.
retail.
Retail.
It's a
Yeah.
clothing
Yeah.
retailer. It's not a, you know, it's, it. So you just keep opening boxes
Yeah.
every time we, you know, it's never ending. But if I'm getting a sense that we should go toward the table route from everybody, is that?
I
that's-
prefer it.
Okay.
I'll just say I prefer it. For most of the
Okay.
ones I've seen in my work, where I'm just looking for the bulk things that I need to know, setbacks, parking requirements, I'm going to a table. I don't want to dig through the code and find all that stuff. I want to go to a table.
Do people generally just go to you and say, Adam, I have a idea, and let you do the work, or do you feel like
The
you
living
just said, when in your work, you dig into
I
it?
go right for a table.
I mean, what is it?
You
Are we
refer
doing
them
it
to a
for
local
ourselves? You know, are we doing it for ourselves, so it takes burden off of you?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't. I always want to. We always have conversations,
Yeah,
right?
right, you
Because
want to,
it's.
yeah.
But in terms of, you know, the current status, you know, there's no easy way for the average person to access this
Right.
and understand it.
Yeah.
It's just lists, and you know, like, I would love it to be more accessible so people can use it more, right? Not that they shouldn't still call and check,
Right.
but even for staff, I mean, there are times where it's just stinks. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
where are you going from here? Then you go in there. So having it more easily, you know, formatted was something, and I don't necessarily care, but what direction we go with it. You know, I think bigger feedback of everybody that has experience in it is important, because I was up in the air about I don't care. But yeah, I mean, making this more user friendly is a massive goal.
Good.
So
And I think to answer, kind of like maybe answer John's question is, it depends on whether it's a small business
Yeah.
or a bigger business. Bigger business is probably going to reach out to Adam first versus a smaller business is going to reach out to like maybe my office and say, hey, I'd like to do this thing. They have no idea about what's permissible or not permissible. And that's going to come up hopefully in the conversation and then link them into Adam.
Adam, if I may. Craig, just to bounce off of
Yeah.
you, just question, comment, concern of, you know, when a potential new startup is reaching out to you, what's the biggest pain in the butt on your side in terms of trying to lead them to that pathway of, maybe the easiest thing is, I know a guy that you can call.
Yeah.
And,
That's the easiest.
You know, I'd appreciate, you know, kind of your insight, your perspective on that.
I think as things keep changing and as the downtown becomes more popular, we're finding a lot more people who want to do their thing in the downtown. A few years back, we had somebody who was doing, they were an artist doing sculptures and that kind of stuff, but they were welding things together. Well, welding was not permitted in the B1 district, but it was a really cool thing to have. And once they got their studio up and running, it's like, oh my God, why wouldn't we allow this? But, so I think it's those kinds of things now. It's like the new opportunities that are coming up just because it's a more vibrant area.
Gotcha.
I did have a question about the chart though.
Sure.
So like line 153 through 159, so accounting is not permitted in the B1?
You got a lot of accounting in B1.
Yeah. So I thought all of those should be minimum Ps, and unless I read it wrong.
I'm jumping, I got your back, Craig.
Yep.
At least I think I do. Where I'm looking at the existing standards, accounting. I have my note, how I reflected it, as a conditional use in the B3
That's what I said.
neighborhood business district. And that is the.
It's the only place it's B3, and this was another point of,
Oh, so if it's not listed,
yeah,
it's
yes.
permitted?
Put an accountant out of business, I see.
But in the B1, but a B1 allows like offices, right?
I think it was right. It might have been right.
Offices, business, organization, professional, including veterinarians. So you know, but then B3, which is an overlay district for essentially a residential district, to have a neighborhood residential, a conditional use. If you want to be an accountant in a residential district, you can get a B3 overlay and allow that. So.
But then the
But then we have
residential
home occupations.
Exactly.
We have, so this is
Allows
exactly
you to do-
where we talked this, it was like,
So we-
is it a home occupation or is now accounting a B3 with a conditional use?
It's like I do work from my home sometimes, from my office, but I never get the clients there, but.
Legal services, conditional use in a
Exactly, never show
B3.
you yeah, exactly. So it's like I've never been with clients there, but it's like, is that a violation if I?
But this is the, you know, in a home occupation, you would think, well, yeah, that would be maybe an acceptable home occupation. But then in B3, it says that that's a conditional use, and that should be the mechanism we're using to allow those things in a R1, R2, or R3 district. So cleaning that up is another part of this, and we talked a long time about just this challenge.
Well, it isn't even necessary to have an overlay. Like, why don't you just make those occupations conditional uses under the R1s, R2, and
I think
R3s?
this is
Yeah.
why we're talking.
I'm just not a fan of overlays. It's just,
Yeah.
it's just like additional hindering on the general zoning.
I would see the use of a neighborhood business district being if we wanted to have a corner market in a residential neighborhood, like on
Grace and
Newberry.
Bourdain, please.
Yeah.
Like if we put a little corner market
Yeah.
on Newberry and Howard,
Yeah.
just to pick a corner in town. I would see that as a B3 and not a home-based business being a B3.
And that was my challenge. My challenge, our discussion on that B3 was, we have a district in name, but it's, you know, you're throwing the blanket on top of, oh, there are certain specifications in that B3, but actually you're following the area, the dimensional requirements of the one underneath it. To which I say, well, what's the point? Like, it just, there's quite literally two layers of district there, to say nothing of, okay, what are the uses, how are they labeled in those respective districts, that then Adam, broader city staff, however it filters to y'all as a plan commission, then have to think about and have a recommendation on. So,
This brings up another thing too, which is something new that's come out of the COVID era, and you kind of touched on this, is people working from their home remotely. I personally do this. I have an office in my basement where I do my work. My employer is in Anchorage, Alaska. So I work remotely from my home. I don't go to a job place. I don't have clients or anything that happens that anyone outside of my home would see, but I'm still working there. That's my office. How is that reflected? I mean, this is something new. People didn't used to do this a lot, but now it's very common.
Yeah, and I think the
home occupation versus...
Right,
yeah.
does it come under home occupation?
Yes, and yeah.
It's a residential business activity.
Yeah.
I guess, I don't know.
I think we should make a differentiation between home occupation and residential business. That is home occupation. Residential business, a client may come to the house, or I'm assembling something to sell in my house.
It's the demand on the facility, right? Whether traffic and business clientele.
I don't think
Outward impact.
I don't think we should be regulating that scenario.
And that's not, I think, what we're trying to do at all, but
the way it's currently
changed.
worded.
It's definitely, yeah. I'll mention this too. So, like, in the industrial district, it's about we talked about this, Matt and I, and it was like permitted use, use of conditional use, prohibited uses, right? And it's about the only place that there are prohibited uses.
Which making industrial I-1 makes sense.
So this I asked Craig here for a reason too. We have in the B1 district, we have uses permitted by right, and we have conditional uses, but we don't have prohibited uses in the downtown. Are there any uses we want to prohibit in the downtown? Are there any uses we want to prohibit outright in other districts? So those are questions as well. So if you have feedback, certainly get it to us.
Did we go with some of them, like no strip clubs downtown?
I think we should.
Yeah,
You know,
I thought, but didn't that come up years ago?
Yeah, when was it early 2000s when
When there was one?
there was
Yeah.
and they tried to stop it, but there was no mechanism to stop it.
Okay, well, I think that we
Because
should look into
Because I
that.
think back then, it was all based on proximity to a church or a school. And I think the location that was selected was outside of that
Yeah,
radius.
I think,
So it was
yes, I
permitted.
remember that now, it was like 1,000 feet, or, it was a
Something.
weird,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think
Okay.
we should have that discussion. and-
Mhm.
I think to make it really fun, we have an overlay
No.
for adult entertainment, and we put the radius in meters, just to really mess with it.
Centimeters.
And the overlay can be in residential, business, or industrial.
Joking aside, generally, if you do have adult entertainment there's, at some point in time, there was a Supreme Court case where it's
You
quote,
can't zone it out.
you can't zone it out,
Yeah.
but you can shimmy it to, say, it being in the industrial district, for example.
Oh,
So it
only
has to be-
allowable.
has to be allowed
That's-
some-
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can't say
I
like
gotcha.
no strip clubs
Yeah.
or adult entertainment permitted, but
You can even-
you can tell where to go. You just can't say you can't come.
Yeah.
You can even go as far as, if I remember correctly, I'll check it if we feel the need to have it in the code. Would be adult entertainment, adult bookstore, of conditional use in the industrial district. Okay, it's in a place where it's not, you can do it, but you're gonna have to give us a little bit more meat on the bone in terms of, hey, what you're gonna do, and there's just that additional layer of control that the city would have in that situation. So,
Is there anything else, Craig, like prohibited wise, that you think would be wise to add? And if you want to, we can.
Certainly the strip clubs,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. The adult bookstores, we'd have to have like probably a clarification or some sort of delineage, because when Book World opened, there were protests against Book World because they sold adult magazines. So I think saying no adult bookstores, I don't know if, like, what that definition is. Is that apply to Book World, or does that not, you know?
Yeah.
Is
So
there
we wanna
some
look into
percentage
like
of business?
tobacco
world-
stores, vape shops?
Tobacco vape.
Yeah,
shops.
I wouldn't, I don't think that's appropriate for the three, 100, 200, 300 blocks of.
One thing that I would like to restrict just from security reasons, because I know what comes with it, is like check cashing stores or payday advance stores.
Mhm.
Because once those move in, there's almost always security issues in that neighboring area.
Another thing, and this is, you may have already addressed this in the code, I didn't find it, but a lot of downtown areas will prohibit fast food places that have a drive-through because of the traffic that's involved, coming in and off of Main Street.
I think I should refine that, not check cashing, but the payday loan ones. Check
Yeah.
cashing is a service many
Like a
businesses
bank,
provide.
yeah.
Banks provided,
Yeah.
the grocery store, at least Webster's did, I don't know, Ivy still does, but the payday loans are the ones that cause problems.
Title loans.
Yeah.
Pawn shops.
Pawn shops, yeah. And then there's a fine line with there too, with
Yeah.
resale versus pawn.
Right.
Right.
Actually, it's a pretty strict definition for pawn.
Is it?
Yeah, very strict rules.
Yeah, and we have some conditional uses in here, and some of those are already kind of listed here, that's, with conditional uses, and we can maybe move those out and
To the B3 or
to
something.
to a different district, and we may have to create a better, because a lot of times, these codes, they say B1, everything in B2, or B2, sorry, everything in B1 is allowed, and
I
it's
think
like,
that's what it says.
so like,
It does
so
say
you
But if-
kind of like,
But if we're moving to
Yeah.
a table format, it's much easier to.
yeah, exactly,
pick and choose.
that's, that's,
Because then it's just an extra letter in a box.
yeah. And I think most of the other stuff is generally in a good direction, in terms of the rest of the industrial, light, we can consolidate some of those.
I think that hit it. I think from my perspective, that hit on
A lot of this jumping
the big
off points.
stuff, smattering on other things.
So-
So increasing some lot size for, say, ag and conservancy, because ironically, those are two districts that point back to R1, and just from an agriculture, if you are going to still have agriculture on certain city parcels, you need a certain economy of scale that makes sense, and, a minimum lot size like what you'd see on one of your R1 lots just wouldn't be conducive to that, So, but
And do we have any of those that would be below like the 5 acre?
Like egg,
Yeah.
There's a couple.
I saw there's like maybe a few small ones, but
I think,
I'm just wondering how many are grandfathered in if
There'd be a
we had
couple.
that.
There's
And
gotta be
I
one
think
off
a-
of State Street in
an
Liberty.
important clarifier on that would be
This one's right
what
here.
changes and updates to the code occur. If you had been kind of in one silo before, but now
Back here.
you're not, you would be a legal non-conforming
Yeah, not
until
until you.
the 50% act of God, your renovation,
Okay.
blah, blah,
Or
blah.
if you stop the non-conforming
Trips.
for a
I don't
year.
know why that's
so.
egg.
Yeah, why would that one be?
I have no
Not cool?
idea. That's Tom.
Tom Rogers, because there was actually active farming on that till before Tom bought it.
Yeah, that was the, was it Dzinski who had that?
There's a couple, like here's egg, here's
Yeah.
egg, here's egg.
So, just.
Just a few of them.
Yeah.
Well, the lens with which I view this, and I had maybe the one sentence comment in here under that interactive zoning. It really threw me off seeing it for the first time because there are certain conventions we have in the planning world. Of residential is usually like yellow. So I'm looking at that.
Well, I just look at
and
it in context, you just look at,
I was like,
Yeah.
so I'm looking at that and I'm like, just literally, it was been a long day, I was tired, I'm like, damn, they got a lot of land zone commercial red on there, and I'm like, wait, hold up, wait a minute.
it's all the home
So-
occupations.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll continue work on it, clean it up, bring back some,
I'll have some red line product
Yep.
for you at a subsequent meeting, but no, that's kind of what I And in a nutshell, I want to bounce off of you all, know that I appreciate the time, appreciate being able to come up here and put names to faces and kind of, hash out some of these components with you. I think it's important for the city as we move forward.
I'd like to have one more comment if I may, because we talk a lot about conditional uses. I know one of your comments in the definition section was talking about addressing, Act 67 and incorporating that. Is that something we're planning on doing, is just put it in?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we need to update that. We're not, yeah.
I think it's good if we're gonna give people what they want when they read it, to have accurate information, so they don't have to go to both zoning code and statute.
Mhm.
I think putting it in is beneficial.
My one sentence summary on 2017 Act 67 is, it raised the floor, the burden of proof for municipalities and CUPs. They're no longer hearsay. John Smith comes in, oh, the traffic's gonna increase. Do you have a traffic study like that? On what basis, can't be hearsay anymore for you as a municipal body rendering a recommendation, an action decision.
So we'll get that cleaned up too?
Yep, yep. Good.
We have direction, thank you.
I can talk more about zoning if you want me to.
Now the fun begins.
It's a good start, because I was getting into it with Matt, and I said, we need more input into this now before we take more steps forward. So thank you all for comments, and again, if there's anything you see in the code want to be addressed, just forward it to me and we'll get it over and look at it, incorporating it in, so.
I got a couple of my cards here if anyone wants to just snag one. I'll give one to Craig because I feel you have mine is important, but got a couple more. We moved to office a week ago, so the address is wrong, and then on Monday we rebranded. So that's me, that's my number, that's my email. But anything else on there is suspect.
All right, well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other comments on zoning code project for tonight? All right. Project updates, staff reports?
I don't have anything else. Depending on how it goes with Matt, we'll see if we have a meeting in December, if we have something come up. If not, it would be around the holiday times anyway, so we'll see if we can meet in January. So.
Good. Any other comments from anyone? Motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourn at 7:59.